place?
Mm. Well, it's actually kind of a natural reaction, as parents. We don't want our children to hate us. We want to do the right thing. That's why so often parents will say, well, you have to let them have social media because all their friends have it, and how do you say no? And, well, you can say no. You can intervene. It just takes an enormous amount of courage, and you have to follow through. And, I don't have a rule book. I don't have a manual. I'm like any other parent who's made it up as I've gone along. Well, but I can tell you for sure that, when you can hear that your child is using a phone excessively, you slightly have to kind of let them do it and hope that they'll stop and hope that they might listen to you when you say, oh, go to bed now, darling. We've all been there. I have been there too myself. And we wanted to take the character to a point that she had to intervene because she could see that what was happening to her child was, without question, actively damaging and truly harming her mental health. And that's when the story really cracks open.
Yeah, it's very pertinent as well for lots of reasons that you said, but also, I was just looking back on this, only a few days ago, the Children's Commissioner for England, Dame Rachel de Souza, has said we're going to look back on this with horror as to the fact we gave smartphones to children and what they've been able to see. Her research has said kids have seen, we know about porn, of course, but also beheadings online by a very young age. And the message that came from her was, do not buy your children a smartphone. What do you make of that?
She's right. She's right. I don't want to be accused of being a celebrity standing up on a soapbox, but it is possible to just say no. My children don't have social media and haven't had social media. There are many fake accounts out there for myself and also my children, weirdly, so I'm told. But it's possible to just say, no, you can't have it. You can't have it because I want you to enjoy your life. I want you to be a child. I want you to look at the clouds and not photograph them and post them on your Instagram page and then decide whether or not the clouds were worth looking at because someone thought that they were rubbish. It's tampering with sometimes a very basic level of self-esteem, but on a bigger and darker scale, it is tampering with young people's self-esteem to the extent that they are completely losing a sense of who they are and don't know how to communicate with not just their friends, but their families. And it's making them depressed. It's clearly making them depressed. It's obviously a huge problem. And she's right. Don't let your children have a phone if they are too young to know what to do with it.
What age did you manage to hold out on with your children?
I actually can't remember, but they were most certainly not 11. But I actually can't remember. It's very difficult though at the same time, and this frustrates me in the same way that I'm sure it frustrates lots of parents. Homework is set online. Children are asked to take photos of the blackboard with their phone if they weren't listening or were sitting at the back and they didn't hear what the homework was. I mean, what happened to good old worksheets being sent home, Schools, I think, are also not necessarily implementing systems that are helpful in terms of mitigating this problem. I mean, I'm like everyone else. I'd love to know what we're supposed to do,
I think that the drama poses some of those questions as well for people to discuss. It's got an added element to this when we're talking about being a parent from your perspective, because your actual daughter is your daughter in this. She's gone into the same world as you, different surname, so not always linked. And I did wonder, on a slightly lighter note, when there's lots of running up and down the stairs, listening outside the room, and then that moment where you talk about her skirt being too short for school, any elements of that had rang true in real life?
Well, listen, let me tell you, this film was not scripted.